Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. Today we're out here in suburbia at a big box shopping center with a 2024 Toyota Grand Highlander. It's natural habitat, I think. And so we're gonna have a good look at it inside and out. We're gonna take it for a drive and talk about what it's really like to live with. All right, my friends, let's talk about what we've got, because this is an all-new vehicle for Toyota and a very important one at that. So the Grand Highlander is a new three-row crossover SUV that doesn't replace the Highlander but sits slightly above it in the lineup. It is 6 inches longer. It has a 4-inch longer wheelbase, and the majority of that extra length goes in the second and third rows. So it offers everything that the Highlander has always offered, but more space for the rest of the family. And it's got new styling to boot. Now the one we have right here is a limited hybrid all-wheel drive, and as tested we're pricing out at $53,000 and some change. So we're about 2/3 of the way from the base level all the way up to the most you can spend if you go all the way up into the Hybrid Max and the top trim grades. Looking at the styling, it's very angular, very modern, contemporary Toyota. It's a little bit jazzy but not over the top. Looking at the front, it's got a very familiar face if you've been to a Toyota dealership lately. LED headlights, a little bit of bright work. Coming around the corner, 20-inch wheels on this one, a nice satin finish, and then black plastic cladding over the arches and down the rockers. Optional on this one is ruby flare pearl paint. Toyota's been very good about making certain colors that most everybody wants an option, and that's something that they do, like the floor mats, also an option. From the rear three-quarter view, you can really see that this vehicle, at least in my design eye, really looks like a RAV4 that is scaled up. It's bigger, it's longer, but the design details back here, they're almost identical. The same taillight profile. I think it's sexy. I like the squared off look with the more chiseled lines that this has versus the regular Highlander. And the RAV4 is a pretty good looking vehicle. It looks more rugged. This looks more rugged than I think the Highlander does. Roof rails up on top. These are a nice satin chrome finish. Just a nice roof line as it comes back into the rear hatch. This is, of course, a power rear hatch on this one. You'd expect that at this price tag. One thing I want to point out, though, if you're concerned about longevity, look at the way that rear gate transitions down into the rear bumper fascia. That bumper doesn't actually stick out at all. It doesn't offer any protection to that rear gate. If somebody were to just tap you even slightly in a parking lot, bump into you, that's metal that they're going to be crashing into right there. That's your rear gate. There's really very little bumper protection there. And it's not a sacrificial panel like some cars have, where they'll put a sort of pillowy piece of plastic there that can accept that bump. That's metal. So if somebody bumps into you, you're getting a new gate. The interior of the Grand Highlander is probably the most important spot for most buyers. It's probably the area that they're going to be looking at the most closely. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on it and talk about all of the things that I found that are really great and a few things that I'm kind of surprised at, to be honest. First of all, let's talk about the design. It's very appealing to the eye. Much better, more aesthetic, a little bit more thought and artism went into this than, say, the Toyota Crown we just tested last week, where I said it was a little bit uninspired. This is well designed. It's got some nice finishes. I like the wood grain trim. It is fake wood, but it's very tasteful and contemporary. And just looking at the dash and the forms and the way things are laid out, it's clear that they thought about it and wanted it to look appealing, and it does. Like most Toyotas that I've tested, the switchgear is of a pretty good quality. It's well laid out, it's functional, and there's a lot of spaces that are really created here to make this versatile in everyday life. The seats that I'm sitting on in the Limited are leather trimmed seat, not that vinyl Softex stuff that Toyota likes. They've given us real leather. They're heated, they're ventilated up front. They're quite comfortable. Toyota seats, they feel like good high quality chairs. They're power adjustable for the driver and for the passenger. I do have memory settings for the driver over here. They're very comfortable, they're supportive, and I could literally sit in these chairs all day long. The steering wheel is a tilt and telescope steering wheel, not power like you might expect at this price range, but ahead of me is a fully digital 12.3-inch instrument cluster. It is customizable in a number of different ways. It's got the Toyota corporate layout with 2 round dials or not 2 round dials, and you can customize what it's showing to you in each one of those spaces so you can make it exactly what you want. The center stack is another big 12.3-inch screen, and we'll get to the details on that in a moment. Below it, hard controls for the HVAC, and you can control the rear from here. Down in the center console, a nice big area down here to stow things. There's a place to charge your phone, and I like that you can see it. The one thing I'd say is that it can move around. It's not locked in here, so if you make a quick maneuver, it might go flying. And cup holders down low, so you can put big, tall gas station cups here, and they won't be in your way overall. A nice traditional shifter. I love that in any vehicle. And then further back are the controls for the drive modes and a number of other things. It's a pretty nice layout. This is sort of a Highlander trademark, the roll top for the center console storage. Down inside, a lot of space. You could literally put, you know, probably about 8 to 10 water bottles down in there. It's a nice deep area. The surprise is the fact that the opening is actually pretty small for as big as that is down there. So that might limit what you can put in there. The opening, more so the space. There is a lot of other little nooks and crannies over here on the front of the dash in front of the passenger, a little storage area there, and there's an extra USB port for the passenger specifically, even though there are plenty to go around. Down on the side of the console, there's also another little nook to stow things away. The big thing with the Grand Highlander is the fact that the second and the third row have a lot more space than they do in the current Toyota Highlander, which isn't bad. Here in the second row, I have 1 additional inch of leg room over the standard Highlander, and as you can see, it's plenty big back here. These seats are set for my height, about 5'8" with my shoes on. As you can see, I've got about 5 or 6 inches ahead of my knees, so you could have really tall drivers here, and this would be fine back here. And keep in mind that these seats can be adjusted front to back quite a bit. There's a lot of range. There's also adjustment range on the seat back rake as well. As you can see, captain's chairs, I've got a little console here in the center, and the comfort's not too bad. The seating height is good. They are captain's chairs, so there's not a lot of side-to-side support here, but they do have armrests, so you can get that. I love that. Now, amenities, back of the center console, you can see controls back here for the rear air and heated seats. There are vents up at the top, so instead of the rear console, they're up here at the top of the roof, both second and third row, so you've got full rear air HVAC. And then down low on the console, a 1500 watt AC outlet. The inverter on this is very strong. You can really plug some wattage into that, and then USB ports as well. There's also window shades back here on the second row. I always love that in a vehicle that's really tailored to families, because if you've got a little one strapped in a car seat back here, it's nice to shade them a little bit. I get it. And so now let's talk about the third row back there. This has 5 extra inches of leg room with the Grand Highlander. A lot of that space went back there, and so you can actually put adults back there or larger than children. And so that's a good thing. Getting into that third row, getting these seats out of the way takes a little bit of effort in figuring that out. These aren't just really press button, get out of the way seats. It takes a little bit of work, but once you get back there, it gives you plenty of space for that third row. Now we've got to talk about the cargo area. It's much bigger with the Grand Highlander. Compared to the regular Toyota Highlander, this has 4 extra cubic feet of storage behind the third row, so they've improved that. It has 10 extra square feet behind the second row, and when you put the second row down, you have a total of 97 cubic feet of cargo area. That's 13 more than the regular Highlander. So really most of the space that's gone into the Grand Highlander all went back here, both for passengers as well as cargo. The rub, putting these seats down wasn't that easy, especially that third row, and these second row seats even take a little bit of work. And I say that because a lot of the competition, they've got buttons or levers at the back that you can go click, click, and down they go. Here, you got to put some elbow grease into it, man. And I took quite a few minutes trying to figure it out. I don't read owner's manuals. I play consumer when I have these vehicles, and it took a few minutes for me to figure out just how to put them down. It wasn't easy, and same with these second row seats. So I'm a little bit surprised at that, especially when, again, most of the competitors have a button, click, and down they go. It's easy to figure out, and it's physically easy to do. So that's kind of a bummer. For the most part, I'm impressed with this interior when it comes to design, materials, the look and feel of it, and the comfort. Where it kind of lets me down are some living with it everyday functional things and some feature content for the money here. We're missing a sunroof at this price. Now, not everybody cares about that, but most of the competitors not only offer a sunroof, but a panoramic roof in the $50,000 range. I also found that the rear seats, putting them down and configuring them and moving them around, it was actually a little bit more difficult than most of the competitors. While this interior does have a lot of good qualities, design, comfort, and some levels of versatility, it's just missing a lot of stuff. This interior gets 4 out of 5 stars. The infotainment and audio system here is Toyota's latest, greatest 12.3-inch connected services system. It's top of the line in this vehicle, which means it has the JBL 11-speaker sound system. When it comes to feature content, this has Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, it's wireless. It has Bluetooth connectivity. It has cloud-based navigation. It has the Google backend that allows you to use it for a lot of concierge services. When you're out on the road, you can use it for voice-activated services relative to the vehicle, as well as fact-finding sessions such as navigation and things like that. You can say, "Hey Toyota,
how can I help you?
I'm hungry." It's thinking.
I found 8 results. The first is De La Cruz Mexican Grill at South Superstition Mountain Drive. Would you like to go to that one?
Perfect. So this is a system that does offer a lot of services. It allows you to talk to it, and honestly, if you're driving down the road and you're bored, you can ask it some questions once in a while, and it'll chat back with you if you say the right things. It's kind of cute. And lastly, I do find that while the graphics on this are very appealing to the eye, navigating around and getting into the settings and trying to do things as simple as set stations can be less intuitive than a lot of the competitors offer. And while some of you might say, "Oh, Sam, you just don't like technology, blah, blah, blah," I've heard it. The old saw. No, I love technology. I love good technology, and some of the competitors really have it. This system's just a little bit clunky when it comes to navigating and getting your way through that. One of the things I really found missing here was a 360-degree monitor. When you put it in reverse, you do have a rear view camera, but in the $50,000 range, and given we're in a big family 3-row SUV, I'm quite shocked that there is not a 360-degree view camera here. Shocked. It's missing. For this money, for this vehicle, relative to all the competitors out there, that is missing. And I think that's a big omission. At the end of the day, this is a system that has a lot of potential. It's got a lot of feature content if you pay the money every month for a subscription. But if you don't pay that money every month for a subscription, this becomes a plain Jane system pretty fast. And even subscription or not, it's missing very important things for this vehicle, like a 360-degree monitor. Overall, this system gets 4 out of 5 stars, and it just barely gets that. All right, my friends, are we ready to take a drive? Now, if you watch my videos, you know the first question I always like to ask is, how does it go? So we're coming to a complete stop and go. Woo! You know you just stepped on the gas, you can hear it. And 60. So that was a pretty continuous burst of power there. I would call it adequate. What we have under the hood here is one of 3 different powertrains offered in the Grand Highlander. This is the 2.5-liter hybrid powertrain, one of 2 hybrid powertrains. This is the less powerful of the 2, 245 horsepower and 2.5 liters. Hybrid system that's been around with Toyota for quite a long time. It's well proven. You can find it in almost every vehicle they offer. It's venerable, let's say. It has a continuously variable ECVT transmission that gives you that very seamless power. You come to a stop, the engine might or might not be on. You're not really going to know the difference. And when you let off the brake, you just have a nice smooth level of power coming at you. You might hear the engine. That is really the only drawback to this powertrain, is sometimes the engine kind of groans and moans along. It has a bit of a leaf blower effect like most hybrids do. But the good news is even with the weight of this vehicle, the power level isn't too bad. It doesn't feel gutless. Now, if you had a full level of passengers on here, if you had all the seats full, maybe you were going camping, that might be different. If you're somebody who's going to be utilizing all of the seats in here, you're going to be loading this up and going on trips and things like that, that might make you want to look into the more powerful versions of this vehicle, either the 2.4 liter turbo or the 2.4 liter turbo hybrid max. Those are where the power is at. This is the least powerful of all three powertrains in this vehicle, but the payoff you get here is fuel economy. This is rated by the EPA at 36 mpg city, 32 mpg highway, and 34 mpg combined. Not bad for a big three-row crossover SUV. Not bad at all. Now, in my week with it, I got about 28, so not quite up to what that stated, but in fairness, this vehicle is right around 1,000 miles on the odometer. It's brand new. Maybe it's not worn in yet. So I give it a little bit of a benefit of the doubt, but that is pretty typical of most of the Toyota hybrid SUVs that I've tested. It's not quite all the way up to what the EPA promises in the way of fuel economy, but it's a proven powertrain. It's going to last forever, as it were. The last thing I'd say about this powertrain is the tow rating on the hybrid is 3,500 pounds. If you go with the 2.4 liter turbo hybrid, it's 5,000 pounds. So if towing is your hot button, again, you might want to consider stepping up into that more powerful powertrain. Overall, though, this is a powertrain that, while proven, isn't really the best of what you can get here. I give this powertrain 4 out of 5 stars. Now, when it comes to the ride, drive, and handling department, this is a vehicle based on the TNGA platform architecture from Toyota, as is most everything they build, and so it drives like most everything they build. And as I was talking about the exterior looking a lot like a big giant RAV4, that's what this drives like. So if you have a Toyota RAV4 hybrid, getting behind the wheel of this is just like sort of a bigger, heavier version of that. It has a nice feel to the chassis. It feels of quality, TNGA does, and the ride is set to medium in the way of firmness. And while it doesn't have a lot of sporting intent, it's tight enough and solid enough that it doesn't bounce around. There's not a lot of unwanted body motions. It feels pretty solid in the way it's tuned. And so they've done a good job of managing all of this weight. Now, I didn't get a chance to put a full load of passengers on to see if it floats and bounces as you go down the highway, but when you're driving it in regular everyday life, it's not too bad. Now, one thing I do have to tell you is that the hood, aluminum hood made of a very thin material, it sort of flutters a lot. It flutters and it jiggles. When you go over manholes and bumps and things like that, you can see it flittering, and the reflection, it's something that I've been noticing all week driving this thing. It would drive me buggy, and honestly, if I test drove one of these and it did that, I couldn't buy it. It just, that I'm type A, I can't deal with stuff like that. But it really is all about the thin metal. On the highway, this is a vehicle that is pretty quiet. 70 mile an hour road test came in at 58.5 decibels. That is on the quieter side of average. It's impressively quiet. On the highway, it's impressively solid and stable. So the chassis, I'm giving pretty high marks to so far, but the last vestige of our experience here is what it drives like off the pavement. Then I'll give it a score. One of my favorite places to test an SUV, especially the popular crossover SUVs such as this, is out here on the Desert Washboard Road. And this is just a great place to bring it out and test it for the uses they tell us it can do. It's an SUV, right? We're supposed to be able to take it out in the country and go camping. Maybe we live on a dirt road and we want to know, is it going to feel like a big POS or not? And basically what this rough, ribbed road surface can tell me is how well bolted together this vehicle is. Well, what I'm finding out here so far is that for the most part, the chassis and the suspension is up to the job. The ride hasn't gotten considerably out of control. It still feels mostly well bolted together. I'm not getting any rattling in the suspension or the steering. It feels like it's all tied together very well. Here's the rub though. Remember that hood I talked about, the fluttering sort of jittering hood? This thing is dancing all over the place, and you can see it. You can see it just flittering and fluttering, and it's driving me bonkers, and it's very much pronounced out here on this rougher road. You can see the reflections of these beautiful mountains and the cactus jumping around. Unlike any vehicle I've ever tested, I'm really actually quite surprised that it's happening. And there are a few rattles and shakes here on the interior. That's expected to a degree, but it's really all about some of the panels and the bodywork on this car that's just sort of built to a price, and to be super lightweight, it kind of spoils the buzz. So this chassis gets 4 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, there you go. We've shown it to you inside and out. We've gone for a drive, and I've shared a little bit of my perspective about what's good and maybe what can be improved here on the Grand Highlander. Overall, I think it's a very impressive vehicle. I like the styling and the overall presentation, the extra space, better than the regular Highlander. I think it's more contemporary, more up to date. And as I said, it really just looks and feels like a RAV4 that's been scaled up and elongated, which is a good thing. The RAV4 is a very popular vehicle. It's got good styling, and this just really fits into the family lineage, doesn't it? So now we've got to talk about value. Is it worth the money? Well, $53,000. Woo! That's a lot of money, but it is right in the middle of what a 3-row crossover SUV costs today. Pick your brand, that's right where it's at. Now, relative to the Grand Highlander range, we're about 2/3 of the way from top to bottom, from the base model all the way up to the Platinum with the Hybrid Max powertrain and all the bells and whistles. Limited, hybrid, all-wheel drive. You get a lot for your money, but as we talked about in some of the other presentation parts, there are a few things missing, I think. The sunroof or a panoramic roof, but more importantly, things like the 360-degree monitor. At $53,000, I think that's missing. And in a vehicle like this, where more often than not, you might have a family behind the wheel, mom or dad, and you've got everybody in there, distractions, it's nice to have that viewpoint going on around you. And I just think it's missing at $53,000. And some of the quality issues, that fluttering cheap hood that they really sort of save money on, and it's something you have to look at every day driving. The bumper or the lack of one back here that might cause insurance rates to be higher. I don't know the answer to that. That worries me if I were to buy this vehicle. So there's areas where I think improvements could be made. Overall, when I look at value, that factors in warranty, quality, design, appeal, all of that. I put that at 4 out of 5 stars. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 4 out of 5 stars for the review. Not bad. So yeah, there you go, the Grand Highlander. I think they're going to sell a lot of these, and definitely worth a look. It's a good solid choice in the marketplace. So there you go. If you want to see our latest video, you can see that right there. Better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel right down there. Either way, stay tuned.